July 11th, 1925. The President of Russia, and we all know his last name, signed a decree on the fundamentals of state language policy, where the Russian language is called a national treasure and an important element of culture that unites the peoples of Russia and Russian-speaking communities abroad. That's actually the most interesting part there. So, for Buryats and Tatars, according to the decree of the President of Russia, the Russian language becomes an important cultural value, and it will not be possible to give it up. I'm not even talking about Russian speakers living in Zambia and Venezuela. In principle, there's actually nothing really bad about this. France finances language studies and cultural projects abroad through the Alliance Française, and Germany does the same. Using the Goethe Institute, China promotes Chinese culture and language through the Confucius Institute. But here is where the problem actually arises. As was recently widely reported in the world press, the Confucius Institutes are engaged not so much in language and culture, but in espionage, surveillance mainly of Chinese people abroad, and punishing those who do not obey the orders of the Communist Party of China. Well, among other things, they also occasionally kidnap ethnic Chinese, regardless of whether they are citizens of China or not. Will the Russian world be the name of the centers that Russia plans to organize abroad? Will it be something like the Goethe Institute, or following a similar KGB tradition, turn into yet another nest of espionage, violence, and surveillance over former compatriots? We can only assume, right? But unfortunately, the experience both in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and in Russia is not very encouraging. The UKZ also mentions reducing the use of foreign words in the Russian language. How these instructions will be implemented in the world of computers, where English basically dominates, is not entirely clear. You can exclude Americanisms from official documents, but on the other hand, it's very clear how to convey information to each other in it. If the whole country uses the terminology of the creators of the Internet, the creators of all modern technologies, for the most part, nothing has been created in Russia. It's only copied. That's why there are no words from the Russian language that explain the actions of new technologies. In the modern world, English and Hebrew dominate, let's put it that way. I haven't really come across other languages. The decree places a strong emphasis on supporting the study and preservation of the Russian language abroad. Support for Russian speakers abroad is naturally associated with the geopolitical ambitions of the current Russian leadership. This is also a challenge to a coalition similar to a new Entente, which has formed or has reactivated recently to counter Russia. Biden's policy was unclear, to say the least. They were simultaneously clearing the way for Russian dominance in the territory of the former Soviet Union, and on the other hand, dragging Russia into endless wars. Then, with the arrival of Trump, for half a year there was a feeling that Trump would play the role of an arbitrator, which means that, as such, he doesn't want to help either side. But on July 8th, Trump decided that the obstacle to peace was the leadership of Russia, and he renewed the coalition to supply Ukraine with weapons and all sorts of other support. The decree that was being prepared, the Russian decree, which of course wasn't prepared in just one day, not since July 8th, nevertheless, is a response to this very new Entente, saying that we are not abandoning our goals and objectives. Even if we've been stuck in Ukraine for 3.5 years and aren't making much progress, nevertheless, our goals remain the same. So how is Russia planning to help the Russian-speaking diaspora? Organizing cultural events, festivals, tours, inviting children of former citizens to study for free at Russian universities in order to influence them and, of course, recruit them into Russian special services. Funding schools, courses, and cultural centers around the world where the Russian language is taught and where former compatriots and their children are monitored. They also recruit supporters and intelligence agents. Next is the creation of a contingent of films, television shows, bribing radio and podcast hosts, and promoting the right bloggers. Well, all of this is being done now too, of course, but now departments of the Russian world will be in every city where many have gathered. Well, I don't know what many means. A lot of former fellow citizens. And of course, recruitment, supervision, and pacification will be carried out more systematically than they are now. Since Western countries cannot object to cultural exchanges, festivals, and all sorts of cultural events, soon the nest of Russian espionage will be operating all over the world, from Washington to Prague and Sofia. One could say that, for example, France also uses cultural ties with its diaspora through Francophonie and the Alliance Française to promote its interests. But France does not exert any political pressure or threats on French-speaking population groups abroad. But China, through, say, the Confucius Institute, not only monitors but also directly threatens and interferes in the lives of people of Chinese origin, including, as I already mentioned, forcing them to spy and punishing them for non-cooperation. Russia, like China, has shown that it is ready to use tough measures, especially in the near abroad. But now it may start applying this same practice to more distant countries, that is, to the United States, Israel, Germany, and so on. For example, the language promotion program pays an extra 5,000 rubles to teachers who teach Russian in Abkhazia. That's a lot of money there. But under the cover of this good, positive initiative, funds have been allocated to finance advisors on upbringing. Well, and the advisors in civilian clothes are in charge of the upbringing of 100% of Abkhaz children. Wonderful, absolutely. Oh, they'll do some upbringing there. There is a noticeable tightening of global protectionism in the world. Who is going to New Atlanta to ramp up anti-Russian rhetoric, the leadership of these countries, so it trickles down, down, down and reaches the population. It's the same in Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. There are globalist negative statements about the United States leadership, paid for with huge amounts of money. Here are the true goals that we, the United States, are pursuing in the world with the help of huge amounts of money and hordes of bots. Look, even 20 years ago, we didn't even have such a word, so to speak, and now it's just a big part of our lives. The world isn't becoming more united, but more and more, as they say, wedges are being driven between us. And new generations, I mean, so to speak, our youth. And here and there in Russia, in America, in Europe, and so on, the youth who are growing up on the internet and electronic games are even more divided. This generation or these generations are more divided than those who studied the world through their own five senses and not through filtered and processed information. Unfortunately, Russia has ended up on the side of those who stir up problems and is trying to claim its place in the sun not by liberating its people from oppressive rule, but by suppressing in this way the truly creative forces of Russia's multinational population. Just look at how many specialists who left Russia or in childhood left the Soviet Union have made significant contributions in Israel and the United States. Absolutely new, absolutely advanced, absolutely unknown. And here in Russia, their brothers and sisters are just like them. And not only in Russia, but in Ukraine and Belarus as well. For some reason, their wings just wouldn't spread. This decree will further strengthen the state's ability to influence the individual. That is, once Ronald Reagan said a truly remarkable thing. He said, "The bigger the state, the smaller we are." By analogy with this, I want to say, the stronger the state, the weaker the individual. And weak individuals don't invent, don't create. They can copy, but they can't invent. Goodbye.